All right, so the Philadephia Eagles set to compete in their 7th NFC Championship game in the last 21 years. And for San Francisco, their 6th trip to the NFC title game since 2011. The stage is set at Lincoln Financial Field for Sunday's game, and we're going to preview it on today's show. But first, the big question this week, who are you going with? Will the Birds punch their ticket to the Super Bowl, or will the 49ers go on the road and take down Philadelphia? Let us know who you got. Let's preview this game right now. Here we go. What's up? Welcome in. You're watching Philadephia Eagles now right here on Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. I know your weekends went in a fantastic way because Philadelphia able to advance in the NFL playoffs after the beatdown against the New York Giants, and I hope your weeks are off to a good start as well. Our week is off to a good start because we're going to preview this NFC Championship game, and it's all presented by Rhone. I'm rocking their commuter shirt right now. Awesome fabric, and for you, 20% off site-wide if you use the code ChatSports at Rhone.com/ChatSports. We'll tell you more about them coming up here in just a few moments. So, really, so many storylines to get to between Philadelphia and San Francisco. I've been saying for the last couple of months right here on the show that these are the two best teams in the NFC. They're on a collision course to play in the NFC Championship game. They have two of the best coaching staffs in the National Football League and two of the best rosters, and these teams offensively and defensively, as evidenced by what we're going to talk about on today's preview show, absolutely loaded. Howie Roseman's done a great job of compiling this Eagles roster. John Lynch has done the same with San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan has the 49ers playing unbelievable football, having won 12 games in a row, and Nick Sirianni helped lift the Eagles to a franchise record 14 wins. The Birds are 2.5-point favorites. The over-under set for 45.5. Kickoff slated at the Link. It's going to be raucous. It's going to be rowdy. 3 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday. We'll have coverage every single day and a watch party on Sunday as well. As for how the Philadephia Eagles got here, what a majestic season it's been for the Birds. They started off 8-0 before falling to the Washington Commanders in prime time. They set a franchise record for the most wins in a season with 14, offensively and defensively. There were so many highlights throughout the 2022 campaign. They won the NFC East, locked down the number 1 seed, which is why they host this game and why it's so critical to get that top spot in the conference and in the playoffs. Got that first round bye, then just put a licking on the Giants 38-7 on Saturday night in the divisional round to advance here. And it was certainly a good sign for Jalen Hurts to account for 3 total touchdowns. His quarterback rating nearly flawless at 113. The Birds running for 268 rushing yards, more than 6 yards per attempt. They really just beat up and took over the Giants on both lines of scrimmage, and for that Giants offense, they couldn't muster anything all throughout the night. So Philadelphia has been the hottest team in football all year long. The San Francisco 49ers have been the hottest team in football since they started off the season 3-4. A confounding weird start for them, considering they've always had Super Bowl aspirations. Week 1, they lost against the Chicago Bears on the road. Week 3, they lost to the Denver Broncos. A couple weeks later, they lost to the Atlanta Falcons. And after just getting steamrolled by the Kansas City Chiefs, they have popped off 12 wins in a row. They finished the regular season because of that at 13-4, clinched the NFC West in the 2 seed, beat the Seahawks in the wild card round, throttled them. Took down the Dallas Cowboys in the divisional round. Dallas Cowboys, 28 consecutive years in which they have not advanced past the second round, the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Let me just say it and get it out of the way, because I know a lot of you are rooting for the Niners on Sunday. How about them Cowboys? Once again, a playoff choke job. Dak Prescott looked as mid as ever. 2 interceptions against this very good Niners defense that we'll, of course, talk about on today's show. Tony Pollard did go out early. That affected the Cowboys' offensive explosiveness because they had to run and use Ezekiel Elliott too much, and we know he's washed by now. This Cowboys defense certainly legit. They caused a lot of problems for San Francisco, but the Niners able to eat up the clock late. They marched right down the field. They got a field goal to make it a 7-point game. And then when the Cowboys season was on the line, what does Mike McCarthy do when they're going to have to run some trickery? They have Ezekiel Elliott as the only offensive lineman. He snaps the football to Dak Prescott, and their number 1 weapon is Kevontae Turpin. Oh, it's so beautiful. All right, if you think the Eagles are going to win against the Niners and get to Super Bowl 57 in Glendale, Arizona in a couple of weeks, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. We're only getting started previewing this game between Philly and San Francisco. First, though, as I mentioned off the top of the show, Eagles Now is presented by Rhone. 20% off your order if you use the code ChatSports at Rhone.com/ChatSports. Men's closets were due for a radical reinvention, and Rhone stepped up to the challenge. Their commuter collection, I'm wearing their commuter shirt right now, the most comfortable, breathable, flexible set of products known to man, and here's why. They have products for every occasion. Rhone helps you get ready for any occasion with the commuter collection, offers the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts like what I'm rocking, quarter zips and polos. You never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Rhone commuter collection. Mobility is everything, and they're comfortable. Four-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy whatever life throws your way. From your commute to work, me hanging out, hosting shows at Chat Sports, or 18 holes of golf. Looking good is easy. It's time to feel confident without the hassle with Rhone's wrinkle release technology, which is huge. Helps you save money at the dry cleaner. Wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the products. The commuter collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next, like a night out into town or celebrating an Eagles dub. Head to Rhone.com/chatsports. Promo code chatsports to save 20% off. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/chatsports. Use the code chatsports. It's time to find your corner office comfort. All right, back to our preview here. The Eagles and Niners don't really have much of a history going up against one another in terms of franchise against franchise. And in the NFL playoffs, only one game. It was back in 1996 in the wild card round when San Francisco won 14-0. But there is familiarity in terms of this matchup between the quarterbacks, the young guns, Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy. This is the youngest NFC title game quarterback matchup in the history of the NFC Championship game. Jalen Hurts is only 24 years old. Brock Purdy is 23. And that level of familiarity that I talked about, they had an epic game in Norman, Oklahoma back in 2019 where it was just back and forth, huge leads, comebacks, and really just a seesaw type of ride between Purdy and Hurts. Is Sunday going to be a repeat of that? If that's the case, we're going to have a lot of fun, no doubt about it. Purdy in that game on the road for Iowa State, 19 of 30, 282 yards. He accounted for 6 total touchdowns, 55 rushing yards, 41 points. Jalen Hurts was on the winning end as the final score was 42 Oklahoma, 41 Iowa State, and Hurts was magnificent, 18 of 26, 273 yards, 5 total touchdowns, 68 rushing yards. So Purdy and Hurts in that game combining for 11 touchdowns in one of the more epic college football games you will ever see, and certainly one of the best in recent memory. Before we continue to keep it moving and progress here on today's show, make sure you subscribe. Philadephia Eagles now 139 people away from 40,000 subscribers. Can we get there by game time? I'm putting you to the test. If you want videos every single day on the Eagles that are informative, entertaining, and consistent, lock us in, subscribe. Year-round daily home for the best Eagles coverage here on YouTube. For Jalen Hurts, let's spend a couple of minutes talking about him because, yes, he did play in Week 18 against the Giants, but the Eagles really protected him in that game. I thought they did a good job of protecting him against the Giants. You could tell that a lot of the design runs were out to the perimeter to limit him taking hits so that he had the option to at least get out of bounds. And you could see with Hurts that he slid down early on a lot of those runs to continue to shield himself. I hope he does that moving forward because this Eagles offense, the complexity of it, just at a completely different level when Hurts is at quarterback for teams trying to game plan against Philadelphia. And against the Giants, 16 to 24, 154 yards, 3 touchdowns total. 0 interceptions. 2 of those tutties came through the air, and a very good quarterback rating at 112, the highest in the Eagles franchise history for a postseason performance. As for Brock Purdy, he is now 7-0 as a starter, 8-0 in games in which he has played in because he did replace Jimmy Garoppolo in the first quarter against Miami a couple of months ago. And this guy has continued to play stellar football. Over those 8 games, 16 touchdowns to 3 interceptions against the Cowboys in the divisional round, the first time in his 7 starts that he has not thrown for multiple touchdowns. Numbers, not eye-popping by any means. 19 to 29 for 214 yards. He did make some really key throws, especially on some of the money downs late to help the Niners salt this game away. Came through with the rating of 87.4. So as you look ahead, there's the college history here between Purdy and Hurts and that Big 12 showdown. And now they get to meet with an opportunity to punch a ticket to Super Bowl 57. Who has the better game on Sunday? BP for Purdy, JH for Jalen Hurts. Hurts, when you watched him on Saturday night, certainly passed that eye test coming off the shoulder injury, and this offense is just so dynamic. They can run the football really flawlessly, as they ran for almost 270 yards against New York. But the pass game, with his deep ball accuracy, gets unlocked when Hurts is on the field, and when there's nothing there, he can pick up big plays with his legs, which is probably what he's going to have to do against a very good 49ers pass rush. And for Purdy, he was a little bit shaky against Dallas, but he showed this level of composure, this level of confidence that was really impressive for a rookie. He played 48 career games at Iowa State, which has helped prepare him for moments like this. Made some big throws late to seal it. Him and Kyle Shanahan really do see the game on an eye-to-eye level. And a matchup here between the 49ers and the Eagles is one that features just some incredible talent. And as a football fan, this is what you want. When you get to the Final Four, as Bengals, Chiefs are on the AFC side, obviously 49ers, Eagles on the NFC side, you want to see the best teams match up to get to the Super Bowl. And that's what you have here between the 49ers and the Eagles, because there are all pros, there are Pro Bowlers, there are future Hall of Famers on both sidelines here. Star-studded matchup. As for San Francisco, it's almost disrespectful for both of these teams to leave some guys out because they're worthy of being on this list. I tried my best to dwindle it down. Trent Williams, best left tackle in the game. Christian McCaffrey had nearly 2,000 all-purpose yards this year. Deebo Samuel last year was an all-pro. Brandon Ayuk had more than 1,000 receiving yards this season. George Kittle had 11 touchdowns after the midway point, still one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Nick Bosa could win Defensive Player of the Year, 18.5 sacks. All-pro Fred Warner was going stride for stride with CD Lamb down the hash through the aerial attack against the Cowboys on Sunday. He's phenomenal. Dre Greenlaw could have been an all-pro this year. Talanoa Hufanga was an all-pro at that safety spot, and Jimmy Ward put the clamps on CD Lamb, a former safety who's played a lot of nickel cornerback. He's really good, was named a top 100 player by NFL players going into this year. As for Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts had an MVP caliber season. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You can slot him top 5. In my opinion, Miles Sanders had a career year, first time that he eclipsed 1,000 rushing yards. A.J. Brown broke Mike Quick's record for the most receiving yards in a season. Devontae Smith broke the record for the most receptions. Dallas Goedert up there with George Kittle, some of the best tight ends in the league. Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, future Hall of Famers. Hassan Reddick, who we're about to talk about, now has 17.5 sacks in 18 games this year. Brandon Graham, still one of the best edge rushers, and is very good against the ground game as a defensive end. And Darius Slay, an all-pro as well. And from my seat, if you've watched the program, you know this. I've said for months now that the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers are the two best coach teams in the NFC. They have the two best rosters. They're two teams that are complementary on the offensive and defensive side of the football, and their rosters are chock full of premier talent. All pros, Pro Bowlers, and future Hall of Famers on both sides, and it became clear to me that when the 49ers got hot after that 3-4 start, they're now on a 12-game winning streak. And as Philadelphia was running through their opponents, starting off the season at 8-0, finishing with the franchise record 14 wins, that these were the two best teams in the NFC. And it's only right that the stage is set for the NFC Championship game on Sunday between the top two teams in this conference. And I honestly believe whichever team does advance, they're going to end up winning a Super Bowl. So with that, predict the score. Birds hosting the Niners. I already asked you to get your game predictions in. Now, get a little bit more precise and predict the score. My prediction coming up here in just a little while. Still a lot left I want to get to on today's show, and it's a little bit of a longer one, so make sure you hit that thumbs up icon and like the video if you are enjoying the show. Eagles injury news here. First with Devontae Maddox. Missed the last few games because of that toe injury. Nick Sirianni did say just moments ago, hopeful that Maddox might be able to play. For Lane Johnson, feeling sore after playing against the Giants. He was so good alongside Jason Kelsey along that Eagles offensive line. It's expected for him to be sore coming off that abductor injury. It's a core muscle injury. it is what it is, but going up against Nick Bosa, his job isn't going to be a lot easier. And Nick Sirianni does also have confidence that A.J. Brown is going to be okay. On that long ball that Hurts had missed late in the game, he kind of got up limping a little bit. One of the best wide receivers in the game, important for him to be healthy. For San Francisco, Ambry Thomas has been out for a little while because of an ankle injury, the second-year corner out of Michigan. Christian McCaffrey was nursing a calf injury in that game against Dallas. He was heating it up, trying to stretch it out. He did say on Monday morning that he thinks he'll be okay to go against Philadelphia. And Charles Omenihu, a very good defensive lineman who has versatility to him, outside, inside, did leave that game with an oblique injury. We'll continue to monitor those statuses for those players on the Niners injury front. As for my matchups to watch, let's start off with this. Eagles defensive line against the Cowboys offensive line. And then the Eagles offensive line against the Niners defensive line. Couple of matchups here in the trenches that could go a long way in deciding this football game. And when you think about the Eagles defensive line, they can wreak havoc. They can take over games, and this 49ers offensive line throughout the year has been really good. Against Dallas, though, and Dallas's physical style of play up front, I thought that the Cowboys actually controlled the line of scrimmage with their defensive play against San Francisco. If the Eagles can follow a similar game plan, they can win this game because this Eagles defensive line has taken over a lot of games this year. They set a franchise record for the most sacks in a season for the first time since sacks got recorded going back to the early 1980s. The Eagles, the only team to have 4 players with double-digit sacks on a single roster. And once again, they harassed Daniel Jones on Saturday, led by Hassan Reddick. Javon Hargrave had a great year. Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Fletcher Cox, all capable of getting pressure on Brock Purdy. And for Hassan Reddick, continues to be one of the best value free agency signings in the course of Eagles history. I had said it right at the time. I wasn't yet the host of Eagles Now. I had said $15 million per year for a premier edge rusher is a bargain when a guy like Aaron Donald is making $30 million per year. And for Reddick, 16 sacks in the regular season. After a sack and a half against the Giants, that total up to 17 and a half. In the regular season, 40 quarterback hurries, 26 quarterback hits, 5 forced fumbles. He can be a game wrecker against this Niners offense. And I thought that San Francisco was a little bit too conservative against Dallas. A lot of bunch formations really catered into what the Cowboys wanted the Niners to do. If I'm Kyle Shanahan, and I think the adjustment that you might see is the 49ers try to spread things out a little bit. They also didn't push the ball downfield. So if they can protect against this stout Eagles front, expect San Francisco to spread it out wide and try to get the ball down the field a little bit more vertically. For this Eagles defensive line, they smothered Daniel Jones, and that's the recipe to win in the NFL playoffs. My team-building philosophy to find success in the NFL, you of course have to find a quarterback. You want to protect the quarterback, but get after the quarterback as well. Eagles able to check all of those boxes this year. So that's the recipe to win in the playoffs. Joe Burrow last year was overwhelmed by the Rams front. The year before that, Patrick Mahomes was beaten and battered by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers front. So the other matchup to watch here in the trenches, it's the Eagles offensive line, which is probably the best in the NFL, against the 49ers defensive line. I'll tell you this. A lot of people are saying, Nick Bosa has 18 and a half sacks. Other than that, San Francisco doesn't have a lot of sack production, as we're about to show you. Don't get it twisted. This Niners defensive line, like Philadelphia's, they didn't generate as many sacks, but they're very good at disrupting the pass rush. Eagles offensive line, best in the NFL. Every player here on this list was named to a Pro Bowl, was an All-Pro, or it's a Pro Bowl alternate. Obviously, Philadelphia, led by the anchors in Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Isaac Seumalo, great offensive linemen as well. And going back to that 49er sack production, yes, Nick Bosa had 18 and a half. In my opinion, he's the defensive player of the year. Hassan Reddick should be in that conversation as well. After that steep drop-off, Samson Ebukam, 5 sacks. Charles Omenihu with 4.5. Drake Jackson was inactive for a couple of games, and he's 4th on the Niners in sacks. But don't let the Niners' lack of sacks fool you. I kind of look at sacks, and I made this argument for Brandon Graham over time, like wins for a pitcher. Doesn't tell the full story of that pitcher's individual success. ERA does. The 49ers defensive line, they're 2-3 deep along all 4 spots. They're versatile, interchangeable, and sometimes their edges play on the inside to try to create a mismatch. Also, another matchup to watch out for. It's the Niners' defense against the Eagles' rushing offense. And this, of course, plays into the Eagles' offensive line. That offensive line was clicking. And if they play like that, this Eagles rushing attack is going to be very difficult to stop. Kenneth Gainwell had the game of his life. 12 carries, 112 yards with that near 40-yard touchdown to put the game on ice. Average yards per attempt at 9.3. Then Miles Sanders and Boston Scott also had really solid evenings. Boston Scott, the giant killer, did have a touchdown, more than 5 yards per carry. The same can be said for Sanders, who totaled 90 rushing yards on the day. And for San Francisco, they've been very good against the opposing rushing offenses across the NFL. Opposing touchdowns per game, number 3 in the regular season, as they surrendered under 2 total touchdowns per game. Eagles offense hasn't faced a defense like this all year outside of Dallas. Yards per rush for San Francisco given up, number 2. Rushing yards per game, number 2 at 77. Points per game, they're 1. Philadelphia going to be tested. Not often do you see this Eagles offense score less than 20 points per game. Yards per game, San Francisco also atop the league as well. And this 49ers linebacking unit, it's the best in the NFL. They are really loaded at that spot with some premier players. We're talking about Fred Warner, who went stride for stride with C.D. Lamb, which is just stupid athleticism and speed. Best off-ball linebacker in the NFL, in my opinion. T.J. Edwards up there, by the way. Number 2, according to Pro Football Focus this year. Trey Greenlaw, a near all-pro. Azeez Al-Shire, very good as well. So this linebacking unit does make up for what can be a suspect secondary for San Francisco. And this linebacking unit is good in the pass, but also could go a long way in trying to stop the Eagles' rushing attack. If you want to interact with me all throughout the week, we're going to be giving you videos every single day with a couple of live shows planned as well, because nobody's giving you better coverage than us here. Interact with me on Twitter and Instagram if you want to chop it up and talk birds. Funny enough, I do cover the San Francisco 49ers every day, the NFL every day, and the Eagles every day. So for people out there, I don't think there's anybody more well-versed with this particular matchup than me, so hit me up if you have any questions. 49ers secondary will be tested by this potent Eagles offensive attack. The Eagles, as we know, are loaded with offensive weaponry, and it's so great to see that Jalen Hurts is feeling good, because now he can really complete and attempt any throw on the football field without being hindered. A.J. Brown kind of held in check against the Giants, but had a couple of huge blocks downfield to spring some yards after the catch, especially on that Devontae Smith touchdown. That comes down to culture, in my opinion. You have to want to block, and A.J. Brown did it. He was a top 3-5 wide receiver this year. Career year for him with nearly 1,500 yards. Devontae Smith, Smitty, skinny Batman with nearly 1,200. And for Dallas Goedert, this is a 49ers team. Also, because of their linebacking core, they do match up well against tight ends. They do tackle well as a physical defense, so we'll see what Dallas Goedert is able to do. Had a nice showing against New York. A big key in this game for Philadelphia is going to be tackling. The 49ers are masters at picking up yards after the catch. They're deemed the Yak Kings, the Yak Bros, and Philadelphia sometimes struggles with getting opposing offensive players on the ground because they don't practice tackling a lot throughout the season. For San Francisco, Brandon Ayuk is so elusive, very slippery as a wide receiver with dynamic speed and this ability to really get out of his cuts in an instant. First time in his career in 3 years that he surpassed 1,000 yards. He's a legit number 1. So too is Deebo Samuel, who can really do it all. Last year as an all-pro, running the football, catching it. He was kind of locked down against Dallas, but Kyle Shanahan will use him in the backfield as a running back as well as a slot and gadget guy. And for George Kittle, big matchup for this Eagles linebacking core and whoever's going to play slot, whether it be Avonte Maddox, Josiah Scott, or C.J. Gardner-Johnson, they'll have their hands full as well as this Eagles linebacking core with George Kittle, who is so difficult to bring down in the open field as well. As for a coaching matchup that I think is going to be a massive element to this game, it's Kyle Shanahan and his offensive genius, creativity, pre-snap motion, and him always trying to come up with wrinkles in the run game and the pass game to either find a running lane or attack the open vacant spots within a defense to allow his weapons to pick up yards after the catch if an accurate throw is made. Against Jonathan Gannon, we know that the defensive line is great. We know that they played really well against New York. But in terms of overall offensive talent all across the field, Eagles have not really faced a team this legit as San Francisco. And during the Niners' 12-game winning streak, San Francisco is averaging 30.5 points per game. I understand that Brock Purdy is a rookie. At some point, he might have a clunker. He hasn't yet. If the Eagles get a pass rush on him, maybe he does, but this Niners offense is certainly legit. And the Eagles aren't great against the run. And part of Shanahan's specialty is getting creative to just find ways to either have Trent Williams lined up as a fullback, Kyle Juszczyk lined up as a fullback. They go split back sometimes. They go with this 21 personnel with tight ends and 2 backs on the field with McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. Can Jonathan Gannon exploit Kyle Shanahan's offense, kind of like what Dan Quinn did on Sunday? Jonathan Gannon, work is cut out for him. Telling Eagles defensive stats. I want to touch on these because Nick Sirianni had really defended Jonathan Gannon after the game on Saturday and said, I can't believe this guy gets as much hate as he does. He's going to be a future NFL coach, and he's an outstanding defensive coordinator. Eagles this year, first in pressure rate. They're going to have to get pressure on this Niners offense. First in yards per play, first in passing defense, first in yards per pass attempt, first in tackles for loss, and first in opponent negative plays. But they have struggled against the run. So I think that is going to be a potential deciding factor in this game. So too will turnovers, our chat stacked segment of the show. Both teams have been able to feast when generating turnovers this year. The 49ers average nearly 21 points per game with 1 or fewer turnovers caused by the defense. San Francisco averages 30.4 points per game with 2 or more turnovers forced by the defense. The Eagles, on the other hand, average 28 points per game with 1 or fewer turnovers by the defense. Philadelphia averages 29 points per game with 2 or more. So either way, this Eagles team has clicked. Whether they generate turnovers or not, the same cannot be said for San Francisco. So with that, once again, we're circling back to this question. Who you got? PHI for the Philadelphia Eagles, SF for the San Francisco 49ers. Let us know. As for my game prediction, I do want to relay that. I have watched every single snap of the Niners this year. I've watched every single snap of the Philadelphia Eagles this year. And I believe that San Francisco does have the slight edge on Philadelphia. Coaching with DeMeco Ryans and Kyle Shanahan. High-level experience in terms of playing in the playoffs because this is their 4th NFC Championship game in 5 years. Back-to-back and 3-4. So they've been to the stage a lot. This Eagles team hasn't. I also think that the Niners have the level of physicality on the defensive side of the ball and the speed to counter Jalen Hurts. They're going to have to spy him because if Hurts is able to move the chains with his legs, that could turn the course of this game and alter the momentum a little bit. I think this game's an all-timer. I think this game comes down to the wire, but I do think the 49ers will win by a final score of 31-28. Now, I grew up in Westchester. I've been a fan of this football team since I was like 4 or 5 years old for Philadelphia. So this is difficult to fathom here. And obviously, it's great if the Eagles do win. I just think after watching every single snap for both these teams, the Niners have the slight edge. And I mean the slightest of edges. 31-28 is my final score. And if you're mad about that, I totally understand. But there's some Eagles fans who are going to pick the Eagles to lose as well. But you can rip me in the comment section. Type F Chase down below. As always, we appreciate all of you for watching the show. Make sure you subscribe. Turn on your notifications too. We'll be going live this week with videos every single day.